Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is a haunting, beautiful, and violent depiction of mental illness unlike anything you've played before. With Hellblade 2: Senua's Saga coming out soon, there's no better time to experience this world. So, after doing absolutely everything and completing this game 100%, here are my thoughts. I'm Adam Scott, and this is Hellblade. Developer Ninja Theory is known for big, ambitious titles, like Heavenly Sword, Enslaved: Odyssey to the West, and the DMC reboot. More focused and concise, Hellblade works on a smaller, more intimate scale, and it's damn near perfect, combining superb visuals, audio, and gameplay into one hugely coherent, powerful experience telling a profound and personal story. It's a Norse meets Celtic twist on the hero's tale, and a psychological character study, following Senua's quest into hell to reclaim a loved one's soul. Her struggle coming to terms with trauma, and the powerful survival guilt shapes how she and you experience the world. Hellblade uses everything in its arsenal to perpetuate feelings of dread, anxiety, and fear. Camera perspective, light, sound, visuals, and combat. The fear is palpable without relying on traditional monsters or jump scares. Instead, it taps into something infinitely more terrifying: the chaos within the mind. Senua hears voices, has visions, and suffers from psychotic breakdowns, all handled sensitively and intelligently by Team Ninja Theory, who worked extensively with mental health experts, professors of psychology, and people recovering from psychosis to convey their experiences. Every battle and every puzzle ties back into the underlying themes shaped by Senua's illness and how she interprets her reality. And while Senua's quest is, on one level, a physical journey through trials, perils, fearsome foes, and terrifying ordeals, it's on another level a much deeper inner journey. Following a Viking raid on her home in the Orkney Islands, Senua discovers that her lover was sacrificed to Norse gods. She carries his skull wrapped in cloth, unwavering in her quest to reclaim his soul from Hela herself in the Norse underworld of Helheim. As the opening credits roll, Senua paddles past burned and staked corpses. The environmental storytelling is dense, filled in with horrors that have shaped the world. You'll hear voices, so subtle at first you'll question yourself. The voices get progressively louder, creeping into your left ear and then through to your right. Suddenly, the whispers are all around you, and it's impossible to tell how many people are speaking all at once. Games often struggle depicting this sort of thing, but Ninja Theory eagerly proves they did their homework with a documentary on the title screen, explaining how they worked to realistically portray mental illness through this interactive medium. On the surface, a title like Hellblade conjures images of a hero like Kratos, stomping through hell, kicking ass. And while there's some of that, it's mostly a deep dive into the mind of someone who's at a breaking point and a near total disconnect from reality. It all works so well because of Senua herself, brought to life by Melina Jurgen's nuanced motion capture performance. Her haunted eyes are used to full effect in long, moody close-ups peppering the narrative. She peers not only into the darkness, but seemingly past the camera, past the screen. The story is told from Senua's perspective, one that's unreliable, so you're never entirely sure what's real and what's a consequence of her psychosis. It all certainly feels real. Senua learns about the Vikings from a former Viking slave named Druth, hinting that his tales might have shaped the version of hell she travels through. She recalls Druth's lessons as she encounters runestones along the way, which triggered Druth's optional but fantastically acted narrations of Viking lore. Druth stands out because he's a voice Senua can choose to hear. She can't turn off the constant voices in her head, who mock her, argue with each other, and advise her even to the point of drowning out Druth's lessons. They're the little nags of anxiety, fear, and doubt we all know, but Senua hears them as real voices. In terms of visual and audio design, it's nothing short of a masterpiece. Ninja Theory themselves have called this a AA game. But you'd never know it isn't AAA looking at the visuals. It was a looker when it launched, but with the current gen patch, I'd put it up against any game coming out now. The close-up third-person camera stalks Senua through the vividly realized world. conjured from a cocktail of Norse and Celtic legend, dark fantasy, and body horror, with landscapes that can instantly shift from dark and gloomy to brilliant sunshine, with seamless transitions between cinematics and gameplay that is only now starting to be explored in more games. 4K with HDR playing at a solid 60 frames a second on PS5 or Xbox Series X is nothing short of breathtaking. Just take a look at this scene.
What's your name?
While the visuals are beautiful, the real star and most haunting aspect of the presentation come from the binaural sound design. You absolutely need to play this on a good surround system, or better yet, with a pair of headphones. Several voices are present almost all the time, with no clear sense of identity. I was cheered on, degraded, laughed at, cautioned, and questioned to no end. They'd warn me to watch out when an enemy attacks from behind, or tell me when I needed to focus. As the voices came at me from all sides, I felt myself slipping out of my game room and into Senua's world, one where there is no quiet or rest. Clever use of sound plays a greater part elsewhere in the game as well. At one point, Senua undergoes a trial where she gropes in the darkness. I could only use my sense of hearing to navigate through to the end. Echoing footsteps somehow transformed into something more sinister. A deep layering of inhuman growling let me know I wasn't alone in the darkness. I was far more disturbed at what I was hearing than what I was seeing. The game expertly taps into the childlike fear of what might be hiding in the dark. The sound design made the experience incredibly visceral and almost unbearable at times. The concern early on is that the game's artistic achievements aren't always matched by the gameplay. Yes, it's stunning to look at, powerful to listen to, and strangely affecting, but not quite as engaging as it should be to actually play. I started to worry this was all sizzle and no steak, a pretty walking simulator with weak puzzles and weaker combat, but give it time. The basic controls are easy enough to figure out. Precise evasion, timing your light and heavy attacks, parrying and blocking are keys to winning battles against more powerful enemies. There's no tutorial, so it took me ages to learn how to chain blocks, attacks, and evasive maneuvers in combos, how to spot and counter assaults from outside your point of view, and how to use Senua's focus abilities in battle. Once I did, things fell into place, and I started enjoying the ferocious flow of battle. There's a dance-like fluidity, which isn't surprising considering Ninja Theory's previous games. The only element that comes close to a UI is the way a magic mirror on her belt lights up when it's time to trigger her combat focus attack. Even in combat, the game layers on metaphor after metaphor. It became abundantly clear there is no rest when it comes to inner demons, and Hellblade sticks to this theme in its brief but palate-cleansing battles. As the game progresses, new elements are layered in. Senua can slow time by focusing to briefly give her the edge over her foes. New enemy types, all cleverly identifiable, start rolling in with new weapons and attack patterns. You go from fighting one or two guys at a time to battling different groups in different configurations, and having to work on your positioning, timing, and crowd control. And the bosses are these steep peaks of challenge that feel rewarding to overcome. As with everything in Hellblade, it can be so tense and stressful, but it never pushes so far that it's frustrating. Senua needs to become the badass warrior you know she can be just to survive, though she never ceases to be very human, vulnerable, even as she slices and dices the nightmares away. Without a HUD, you won't know how many lives you have or how much health is left. The screen distortions are the only indication. The game gives very little instruction or direction, except for a single prompt. Every time you die, rot progresses up Senua's arm. When it reaches her head, she will really die, and all progress will be lost. Hella infected her arm with rot, and the tendrils of decay creep further up her limb with each death. And when they reach her head, not only is it game over, but the save file is erased, wiping out all progress. It's a cruel and unforgiving mechanic, and it was successful in adding a thick, heavy layer of tension and hesitation to everything I did. This threat connected me to Senua. Her loss is my loss. When she hesitates, I hesitate. When she's scared, I'm scared. And I can't think of any other game that feels the same because of this. Now, was the threat of erasing all my progress a lie? I'm genuinely not sure. But even if it was, it fit perfectly into the narrative of Senua's reality, where curses in hell are very real. To my surprise, the frequency of puzzle solving overtook fighting in Hellblade. In the bonus documentary, psychiatrist Paul Fletcher says that people begin to see patterns in the world. They begin to link things that most people wouldn't. This is the underlying theme of Hellblade's puzzles. Solving them requires broadening your perception, paying attention to the environment, and finding patterns. To unlock certain doors, you'll need to look at a rune and find something in the environment that matches it. It could be a shadow of a beam cast onto a wall, or a hanging branch that aligns with a pole. Fix a broken bridge by looking at shards of reality from just the right angle. It's all about finding the right vantage point and seeing the world in a way different than you normally would. This is one of the strongest ways in which we can understand how Senua copes with her illness. Video games are able to more clearly convey this than any other medium. These segments gave me a window through which I could experience what this warped reality feels like. Solving these puzzles of perception quickly became one of my favorite parts of Hellblade, but at times they halted the flow of the game. Riding the adrenaline high after decimating a horde of enemies can quickly be extinguished by having to comb through an area multiple times to find the semblance of a shape. If you can't find the rune, you can't advance through to the next part of the map. It can sometimes feel like a bit of a grind, especially given how Hellblade reads as more of an experience than a game in almost every other respect. Throughout, a series of trials see you robbed of light and vision, or navigating paths and gateways between light and dark versions of the world. There are sections that play on your fears, sections that mess with your viewpoint, and sections that will test your speed and nerve. More than once, audio is pulled to the foreground as a way to test more than just your reflexes. What's more, each element seems to be more than just another cool idea or game mechanic, but a way of exploring who Senua is and why she suffers. Focusing is Senua's way of imposing her will on the world, and it's used extensively, not only in combat, but in sequences where she has to listen for the precise direction of the chanting of an evasive boss, or feel her way through the pitch blackness of a lair where frightful blobbing enemies lurk. The game is certainly not as punishing as it could have been. I died a handful of times, and the rot had only snaked up around 3/4 of Senua's arm by the time the credits rolled. Good thing too, sometimes I failed for the dumbest reasons, panicking when being chased and letting my fear overpower my logic. What was in my head was often more powerful than the actual threats. It's a relatively short game, clocking in at only 8 to 9 hours for a single playthrough, and you can actually complete the game 100% in that playthrough, making this a very attainable platinum trophy for most people. You'll want to pay close attention to the environment to pick up all of the collectibles and hear all of Druth's tales, but otherwise most of the trophies are unmissable. Hellblade is an incredible triumph as an action game, a spirit quest, and a psychological character study, bringing together some jaw-dropping visuals, incredible audio design, and great performances. Nearly every facet of the game, whether it's combat, puzzles, or exploration, is deliberate, pointing back to the overarching theme of what people called cursed during Senua's time. Hellblade successfully weaves metaphor of grief and loss into fundamental game mechanics and rich folklore, and through these I felt like I truly was able to understand how someone else sees the world. It's short-lived, but perfectly paced with a richness and complexity that grows as the game goes on. You owe it to yourself to check out the haunting, engrossing, strange, and beautiful world of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Alright, you've heard my take on Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and I'd love to hear yours as well. Also, what's your favorite underappreciated indie title? Let's talk about it in the comments down below. If you liked the video, hit like and subscribe. And if you want another amazing game, check out my video right here. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.